My name is Tiffany. Before getting married, I worked full-time. But the truth is, that company had terrible working conditions. I had nearly 90 hours of unpaid overtime. I thought about working even after marriage, but due to health issues, I decided to quit when I got married. Now, I live a healthy lifestyle, waking up and going to bed at regular hours. My health improved drastically after quitting. My husband, Theo, didn't oppose my decision to quit. He seems to love that I am home, doing household chores and welcoming him back from work. Back when we were newlyweds, he would often say, "I'm so lucky to have a wife who welcomes me home." Though, after 5 years, that sentiment became a given. But that's to be expected. Still, issues crop up over the years. My mother-in-law, Sarah, who used to be sweet, now often asks, "When will you give me a grandchild?" every time we visit. And she always chooses to say it when Theo isn't around. Years of hearing this has built up a considerable amount of stress for me. To be honest, I don't want to see her because of the pressure she gives. My father-in-law, John, is a quiet, kind man who doesn't interfere. The irony is, it's Theo who says, "Kids are just a hassle, they also cost a lot." Yet, when confronted with his parents, he acts as if it's none of his business. Once I told him, "If you don't want kids, explain it to your parents." But he shrugged it off, saying, "Isn't that a conversation for a woman?" At crucial times, he evades responsibility with his own set of values. Because of this, to his mother, I seem the wife who can't have children, and he's the husband supporting her. Finally, I tried to clarify. It's Theo who doesn't want kids. But Sarah, convinced I can't get pregnant, replied, "You're just trying to put the blame on someone else." John sometimes tells Sarah not to interfere with our choices, but she doesn't listen. In the end, Theo doesn't want the hassle of parenting, but doesn't want to upset his mother either. It's evident that he's always trying to please his mum. Honestly, I never thought he'd be this unreliable. If a ship were sinking, he'd probably save his mother before me. Yes, he's a bit old-fashioned, but at least you're not living with them. My mother casually responds over a weekday afternoon call. Over the past year, I've often vented to my mother about Theo and Sarah. Although my mom is quiet, she's rational. She patiently listens and often calms me down. I feel guilty sometimes, thinking that a wife shouldn't complain about her husband to her parents. But with Theo not being supportive, my mom is the only person who truly understands me. I'm sorry for always talking about this. I know you have your struggles too. It's okay. Mom's fine now. The hospital tests showed nothing wrong. In reality, she had heart surgery and got a pacemaker just 3 months ago. I was worried when I heard she was going in for the procedure, but she just laughed it off. Reminds me of when I told my husband. He said, "Pacemakers are pretty common these days. It's not that big of a deal." Yet, when his own mother sprained her ankle, he panicked and promised I'd help out without asking me first. Talk about double standards. I mean, a surgical cut is way more serious than putting a plaster on an ankle. I always complain over the phone and rarely visit my family since I live far away. I haven't been the best daughter to my parents, but this time I plan to surprise my mom on her birthday with a trip in collaboration with my dad. I'm home. Dinner's ready. My husband, as always, takes a seat at the dinner table. He never really comments on the food anymore, but I was excited about the plan I made with my father. Actually, my mom's birthday is coming up. Oh. He paused eating his steak and looked at me quizzically. I was thinking of booking a hotel in Lake Tahoe and taking a trip there. Really? He didn't seem too keen. The hotel is quite fancy and it's popular around here. I got a great deal through a contact. Upon hearing the word luxury, his eyes lit up. A luxury hotel? We're getting separate rooms from your parents, right? Yes, we are, and since both my parents will be there, why don't we do some sightseeing in Lake Tahoe together? Sure. At least he seemed somewhat interested. Considering he spends most of his time with his parents, he can't complain about the trip with mine once in a while. Luckily this time, I don't need to arrange the date or the hotel booking. My parents are taking care of everything. It's like I'm letting them do everything for me. This might seem more like me being spoiled rather than being kind to them. What's the trip? I need to apply for my leaves. My husband threw the question over his shoulder as I was packing in the bedroom. Didn't I tell you? It's on the 23rd and the 24th. Oh, right. Turning around, I saw him absent-mindedly fiddling with his phone. I've told him about this trip before. He never really pays much attention to me or my family. But on reflection, indifference was better than his past reactions. On the day of the trip, we drove to the luxury hotel in Lake Tahoe. My parents had arrived the previous night. Today's plan was to explore Lake Tahoe with them and enjoy dinner at the hotel. It's been a while since I last saw them. Maybe since my mother's surgery. They are both retired and don't usually splurge, so a trip like this should be fun. I sat in the passenger seat, leafing through a Lake Tahoe travel magazine. Upon arriving, I planned to call my parents to the lobby after checking in, but they were already in the parking lot, and standing next to them was Sarah. Suddenly, my husband parked the car abruptly and rushed over to them. What on earth is happening? I was sure I had explained the plan properly. I quickly got out the passenger seat of the car and followed. What's going on there? While I was flustered, my husband began speaking fluently to my parents. You knew of a great hotel, didn't you? We plan to enjoy it with my parents from tomorrow. You've already paid for the stay, right? My parents were stunned. Of course they would be. This was completely unplanned. My mother-in-law, as brazen as ever, said, You sure know some good hotels. Take care of it for us, okay? And next time, let's go to Alaska. What are you saying? On the other hand, my father-in-law, seemingly as clueless about the situation as we were, asking my husband, Didn't you invite us on this trip? You said you'd cover the costs. Hearing that, I could feel the blood rush to my head. Wait a minute. This hotel was arranged by my parents. Why would you just invite yours? Now my mother-in-law chimed in. What's the big deal? You can't hog such a nice hotel for yourself. You should care more about your husband's parents. I wanted to treat my parents to a luxury trip because I rarely get to see them, unlike John and Sarah. Plus, today is my mom's birthday. My mother-in-law, with a really look, sized me up from head to toe. You've never gotten me a birthday present. Such blatant favoritism. What? I raised my voice in disbelief. You did send Sarah her favorite flowers recently, didn't you? That was from your son. Stop taking credit for other people's gestures. I looked at my husband, who was avoiding my gaze. He never showed any interest in giving gifts. Since our marriage, I've been the one choosing and giving gifts. So you kept silent about the gift for Sarah. Looking into my husband's eyes, he said something unthinkable. Look, I'm using your money to buy them. It's the same as if I picked and bought them myself. He seemed genuinely annoyed. Generally, after marriage, my parents should be the priority. Send your parents home. What? That's right. From now on, it's quality time for our son and us. My mother-in-law interjected without missing a beat. I was deeply hurt. I never imagined he felt this way. Where did the kind man I married disappear to? Then a robust man in a suit approached us quickly. Is there a problem? Before he could finish, my mother-in-law began speaking at lightning speed. We want these people gone. We'll use their remaining nights. I'm sorry, but we can't do that. Why not? She snapped. They have already paid, and we have them booked until the day after tomorrow. In her fury, she pointed at me. She is my son's wife. What belongs to my son's wife and her parents is practically ours. My husband just nodded. Seeing that scene, all my pent-up feelings felt like they exploded. The man apologized and said they couldn't do that, but she replied, First of all, you are letting such poor-looking people stay here. Won't it ruin the hotel's reputation? My husband started blaming me along. I decided to approach my husband's back and tell him the truth. You know, this place is my father's family home. What? My husband and mother-in-law stared at me with wide eyes. The man in the suit is my father's younger brother, which means he is my uncle. My uncle started speaking in a firm yet humble tone. My brother and I have a big age difference. Back then, our parents were busy with their hotel business. He took care of me like a parent. Everything I have now is because of him. Hearing this, my father became emotional and whispered, When I heard you were staying here, I was truly happy, thinking I could finally repay his kindness. But you, thinking you could stay for free just because it's your son's wife's family? Oh! I could hear my mother-in-law's groaning. We have rooms available ranging from 450 to 1,800 per night. Please proceed to the front desk if you are interested. Stunned by the price, my husband and his mother were flustered. What do? We don't know any other hotels. What do you expect me to say? Watching the two, my father-in-law let out a deep sigh. This is karma for always taking credit for Tiffany's achievements and trying to impress your mother with them. My husband seemed at a loss for words. I'm truly sorry, everyone. I never thought my son would do something like this. He began to apologize deeply. Now, wait, John. I quickly intervened. My father-in-law is a victim too. He was invited to the hotel by his son only to find out he'd been deceived. Though my mother-in-law seemed to have been told even more. Suddenly, she had an idea. Wait, since it's a hotel run by relatives, can't you give us a discount? We are family after all. How shameless can she be? Has she forgotten all that she has done? But my uncle calmly stated, I don't consider someone who insults my loved ones as family. His words made me realize something. The way my husband and mother-in-law had been treating me all along was condescending. All the unpleasant tasks were left to me. Any prize was stolen by them. What was I to them? They exploited and belittled me. If they had thought about my family even a little, this trip wouldn't have happened. You've always looked down on me, haven't you? I said, looking at my husband, who hung his head in silence. You thought my parents would let this slide if you pushed hard enough. How awful! I couldn't afford to stay at such an expensive hotel. I just wanted to impress people. With a face full of regret, he glared at me. My father-in-law approached, looking disappointed. Isn't this just like you? Always trying to look good in front of your mother. Who is the person you should be protecting the most right now? Huh? My husband stood still, looking confused. With a stump face, my father-in-law continued. Listen, you are married. Your priority should be protecting your wife, not impressing your mother. And yet, you... My husband looked away. But I noticed the expression on his face. He will always choose his mother, no matter what anyone says. Summoning my courage, I raised my voice. John, thank you for all you've done for me so far. You've helped me more times than he ever did, but I can't continue living with him as a couple any longer. My husband looked up, surprised. Let's get a divorce. Saying the word divorce out loud made me feel incredibly liberated. Right, I've always wanted to divorce him. Are you serious? I heard my mother's voice from behind. I nodded. Yes, I've been thinking about it for a while now. Hold on, I'll apologize for what happened this time. Watching my husband scramble was almost like seeing a stranger's plight. It's not just about what happened this time. It's the forgotten gifts for Sarah and countless other things. Of course, today played part in my decision. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, red-faced with fury, yelled, "A woman like you, who doesn't work or even have children, should be grateful just to be married." The realization that I could also sever ties with her left me with no fear. Look, I won't be belittled, and just for your information, it was your son who didn't want kids, saying parenting would be a hassle. I bet you never heard that from him. My mother-in-law just sat down, stunned. She had always believed it was my fault, not realizing it was her son's decision all along. So, my husband and mother-in-law were taken away by my father-in-law, and I went on to enjoy a family vacation with my own parents. You had quite the eventful birthday, didn't you? I'm sorry. My mum, with her usual cheerful tone, as long as you are happy, that's all that matters. But who knew he was that awful? I should have visited earlier to see how things were. No, it's okay. I've been in that life for so long. I became indifferent. This was a wake-up call. My typically silent father seemed to have a hint of joy on his face. After that, my husband and I divorced. But it seems the relationship between him and his mother has soured. He was never the considerate type and always left everything but his job to me. Without me, his apartment was reportedly turned into a garbage dump. Apparently, my ex-mother-in-law visits him regularly to clean up. However, she's nearing her breaking point, often fighting with the son she used to adore. Once, their argument got so heated the police were called. My ex-father-in-law claims she brought this upon herself by spoiling their son. Interestingly, on the day of the hotel incident, a neighborhood association president, whom my ex-mother-in-law was close with, was vacationing there too. He saw all her unreasonable antics. As a result, she's lost all respect in their community, labeled as the mother of the husband who bullied his wife into divorce. As for me, I found a job at my uncle's hotel. Searching for a job post-divorce, he offered me a position. Keeping the fact that I'm the owner's relative a secret, I'm now learning from more experienced staff members. The hotel job requires meticulous attention, and while there are tasks I haven't mastered yet, and times I've been corrected. It's a far cry from the unappreciated housework I did before. Every effort here gets its due recognition.